historical background on adoption to help set the stage for what we're going to hear from our two presenters today. While adoption is a centuries-old concept, its purpose and focus has shifted dramatically over the years. In ancient times, Babylonian, Chinese, Egyptian cultures, the concept of adoption was commonly used to provide heirs. However, in many cultures, the concept of adoption is moot. It's meaningless because blood lineage determined all. In the 17th century, children without families were put out, indentured or apprenticed, or placed in homes for domestic service. These practices continued in colonial America with the increased demand for child labor. With the advent of the Industrial Revolution, this informal system was simply overwhelmed, and adoption laws developed. There was a legal process to transfer the care of a child from one family to another. Now, whether this was for the protection of the children or to keep track of them as property, it's not sure. Increasing immigration at the time also created more vagrant children, children living in urban ghettos, just as the child welfare movement was beginning to pick up steam. Enter the Children's Aid Society and the Reverend Charles Loring Brace, who was its founder. Brace believed that family life was preferential to institutional life, and that farm life was the best of all. Thus began the orphan train, bringing destitute and abandoned children to frontier families needing, yet again, cheap labor. Children ages 2 to 14 boarded trains from eastern cities. They were paraded before interested families who picked them up out of a lineup. It is estimated that over 100,000 children were adopted this way. As adoption moved into the 20th century, many factors converged to make another shift in the adoption scene. A drop in the birth rate due to World War I and the influenza epidemic, combined with a prevailing philosophy that nurture rather than nature held sway in child development. There was now a demand for healthy, white infants. Infants placed by young women shamefully stigmatized as unwed mothers. So adoption now went underground, shrouded in secrecy and anonymity. The sealing of adoption records became the law, probably to protect children from the stigma of illegitimacy, and birth mothers from the shame of out-of-wedlock pregnancies, and adopting couples from the embarrassment of fertility. Agencies narrowed criteria of who could adopt, and couples had to provide medical evidence of infertility. There have been many changes in adoption over the last couple of decades. Today, openness in adoption is increasing dramatically. Birth parents, adopted parents most often meet with each other, even choose each other prior to the birth of the child. Healthy white infants are no longer the norm. More frequently, older children are adopted, and not like it was 100 years ago, primarily for purposes of labor. About a third of the children adopted in California are older children, over the age of 3, and some in their teens. Adoption across racial and ethnic lines is quite common, as is adoption by same-gender couples. Overall, almost 10,000 children are adopted each year in California, not counting step-parent adoptions. The vast majority of children who are adopted out of the public foster care system, typically removed from their parents due to abuse or neglect. The rest are adopted by private arrangement or from other countries.